Warm greetings from Chennai to participants across India and the globe. Welcome to the 8th edition of Healthcare Insights powered by RedMed and hosted by LBN Tech Solutions and All Ladies League. I am Meghalai Sendilkumar and I head LBN Tech Solutions, a digital marketing company, and I am the host for this evening. Today's topic is post-pandemic world, wellness to the forefront. Thanks to Sandhya and Jay of RedMed, we have had several eminent speakers gracing healthcare insights in the past. RedMed Health Systems is a connected health venture that has the goal of empowering people to lead healthy lives. You can know more about RedMed by visiting www.redmed.in. Today's expert speaker, Dr. Professor R Vaidyanathan, is a retired professor of finance at IIM Bangalore, a graduate of the Loyola College, Madras, and a master's from the Indian Statistical Institute, Calcutta. He obtained his doctorate from the Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, where he also taught for 4 years. He is 2 times Fulbright Scholar and a fellow of ICSSR visiting faculty at various universities in USA and UK. He has been selected by Business Today as one of the 10 best professors at all IIMs. He has the rare privilege of being in various committees of regulators like SEBI, RBI, IRDA, PFRDA. He is consultant to many organizations and is on the board of many corporates. He has been conferred Life Contribution Award by Asia Pacific Risk and Insurance Association and KYBO Life in 2019. His book, India Inc., Role of Non-Corporate Sectors in India, which focus on Indian Asian value systems, has been well received by planners and policymakers. His other book on black money and tax havens has been acclaimed by experts. His recent book, Caste as Social Capital, has been well received by the market. He is on the advisory council of Vivekananda International Foundation. He was a member of National Security Advisory Board under the National Security Council 2019 to 20. Currently, he is Cho Ramasamy Chair Professor in Public Policy at Sastra University, Tanjavur, Tamil Nadu, and Emirates Adjunct Professor of Rashtriya Raksha University, RRU, an institution of national importance at Ahmedabad. So happy to have you here, Professor, such an accomplished person, and we are delighted to have you here as an expert speaker. And participants, if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box and our expert will answer them after his speech is over. Over to you, Professor. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Meghalai. Thanks for the organization for sponsoring it. And of course, I should thank Sandhya also for initially introducing me to this thing, both the organizations. And it is very interesting because I am not a, what one can call a health specialist, or my only linkage with the health is my own health vis-a-vis the doctors whom I visit. And he suggests, and every time I visit him, he says, reduce your food intake by 1/3. So every time I visit him, he says, that's only solution for you. So that is what is, but one thing I know, declining balance in finance and economics, we call it. By reducing it 1/3, it will never come to 0 at least, because it will always be reduced to some small numbers and other things. Anyhow, I am very happy to be part of this, and I am not going into any technical details of health and other things. Do not make me into that. That's a very complex area. Then I have to ask my my personal doctor to help you out. Anyhow, the theme what we are looking at is what are the possibilities for healthcare, and what loosely one can call as wellness industry in the post-pandemic period. First of all, one is not clear. Everybody is talking about post-pandemic and new normal and other thing. Whether there will be a post-pandemic period at all, in the sense, will it continue for a very long period of time, or at least the behavior pattern of people will be influenced by this. For instance, I was in Seoul, South Korea, much later, around 15, 16. I found people were still wearing, mask and walking around and other. I was puzzled. Then they told there was SARS. Some of you may recall. That was around, I think 11, 12 or something. And people had a certain amount of lifestyle, and it continued for a couple of years actually. Even after SARS was reasonably declared to have been closed in many of the Southeast Asian countries. In India, of course, SARS was not such a major, what one can call virus or disease at that point of time. So the post-pandemic from the corona, it is called corona, but I would like to call it a Chinese virus. It is a Chinese virus. There is no two opinion about it. And because of their influence in World Health Organization, jokingly it is called Wuhan Health Organization, and they are not even wanting it to be called a Chinese virus. Ebola river-based thing, it was called Ebola virus only. That some of you may recall, we had this Japanese encephalitis. It's a pig-based disease, but it originated in Japan. So it was called the Japanese encephalitis. Then we had earlier Spanish plague. And so there is nothing to call it as Wuhan or Chinese virus. But it has been somehow they have convinced the world at large not to call it a Chinese virus, call it as this COVID. Not only that, now all this alpha, beta, delta, gamma, till the end, I think they were going to name it. And some of them have the audacity to say it is the Indian variant and it is a Singapore, British variant, another thing, not the Chinese. It's a very perplexing thing when they are the ones who have, according to everything, it is the source is China. At least that they have not denied it. But they have not allowed anybody to investigate. After nearly 1.5 years, this WHO team was permitted, and they went there, and it was a conducted tour to the Wuhan laboratory. And like in Tirupati, they say, before you reach the God, they say, Jargandi, Jargandi, go away, go, move, like that. That's the way they treated the scientist, and there was nothing much to be found about the origin or whether it is leaked from the lab or whether it is. So this the whole thing is in a sort of a mystery, and surprisingly, given of course they are the superpower today, no country in Europe or even US has condemned China for this behavior of them. They are just again and again telling, and so this is something which is very interesting. My own assessment is China has a very large role to play in this. I would rather call it as a bioweapon used by China. That's a separate type of issue on the topic. Now, a lot of people's lifestyles have thoroughly changed. That all over the world actually, not only in India. For instance, some of the elementary things is print industry is more or less dead everywhere. All over the world, in Europe and in US and many places, print industry is dying down. And earlier to this pandemic itself, they were not performing well. And now post-pandemic, they are all having severe problem. Either they are closing down or they are asking their employees to go home or cutting their salaries. Like that, it is happening. Then travel, that is another one. Most of the flights are all going 20%, 15% like that. And that type of what one can call enthusiastic travel pre-pandemic is not going to come back. That is, you just get into the flight, go to Singapore, go to Hong Kong or go to Bombay, and that type of thing is not going to be again easy to return back. And one is the business travel has significantly come down, and many of the businesses are happy because a huge amount of cost reduction has taken place. A lot of meetings are like this through Zoom and other thing. I'm on the board of a couple of companies. They are telling we should continue with this because each meeting, something like 30, 40 lakh, they are saving. If the meeting is to be held in Delhi or Bombay, they have to call all of us and business class and then stay in a 5-star hotel and then local travel and all that thing is gone now, actually. So there is a massive change in the travel industry. As well as associated with the travel is obviously this tourism. A lot of places to visit. Another thing is not going to be any great enthusiastic or anything in the future. So many of these industries have shutting down. And similarly, large audience, large participation type of places like your cinema halls or playgrounds and where people watch matches and other thing is also going to be significantly affected. Initially, there will be some enthusiasm for pent up thing. People may go, but there is always a concern and a worry. That is something which how long this will last, one doesn't know. That is whether this will be for a couple of months or a couple of years, and like we have in our tradition type of what one can call vairagyas. You attend a lecture by Swami Chinmayananda or some such person, and at the end of it, you get what is known as the prasanga vairagya. You begin to think that significant amount of changes in lifestyle is required. What he told is very correct and other thing. And after when you get up in the morning, things are as in the past. Then you have prasava vairagya. This is pre-contraceptive days, and the delivery take place. Then she says that this is the last. Enough is enough. And again, once more she conceives. And third is the mashan vairagya. You go to a burial ground for somebody's last rites, and then you feel, what is this life? There is nothing important in this, and everybody is going to be finally pot of ashes or buried inside the ground, and again after a day or so you come back to your what you may loosely call normal. So we can even now call it COVID vairagya. Whether it is going to be continued in the same fashion is we have to wait and see. That is very important. It's not something which easy to answer now. But COVID has generated some amount of drastic changes. One is the stress on wellness industry on the whole in terms of health. People were not so much worried about health in the earlier period. Not that they were not worried, but it was not the what you may loosely call the main topic on the dinner table. It is more, I would say, wealth in terms of where to invest, how to get some return and all these things. Now, health has joined wealth as one of the major areas of concern. Along with that also is the what you may loosely call the diet or food industry. In the sense, we have the age-old saying, whatever you eat, you are made of whatever you eat. That has come to the fore again. So the wellness industry is going through significant changes. And earlier to that itself, there were a lot of discussions and studies between the wealth and wellness. And there are some, we used to jokingly say in the finance profession that maybe after 5 years, your investment counselor will come along with a doctor. He will check your pulses. He will check your pulse checking. I think is not done nowadays. I don't think many doctors know how to check pulses. Sorry to say this, because they are all depending upon what are called computerized reports, and they don't even actually hold your hand or anything like that. Mostly, I tell my doctor it is more like a veterinary type of a situation where the dog is never asked what is your problem or something. Same way, anyhow, if not pulses, at least they will ask you to have your cholesterol and your other type of test. And based upon your type of heart rate or something, they will tell you invest in this particular industry, invest in what we call the emerging area of neurobiological finance. In the sense, how much of these financial decisions are having impact on your health is equally critical or important. I remember I used to be with the in those days Bombay Stock Exchange Associated. There was one of the leading stockbroker who was having a coronary problem. He was admitted. We went and visited him in the evening, and then in his in his chamber, in his room, there was this what do you call heart things are shown in the machine. Sort of a graph was going. So somebody was joking, the broker, this graph is inverse of the graph of the Sensex. If in the sense Sensex comes down, his heart thing goes up like that. So what used to be the primary focus is also now becoming wellness. Primary focus is to be wealth. Now people are increasingly, talking in terms of wellness. And all these, the associated gadgets and other things are having a boom sale in terms of, how many, steps you walk, how many minutes you walk, and what type of diet you take, what calorie. People are talking in terms of very interesting things, how much calorie you have come down, and BMI, and these are all becoming a common type of a terminology, which was never, used in the past. Anyhow, so this is the future. Future is extraordinarily two areas. One is education. We'll come to that. That's not something which is of interest to us. And other is this health industry. Now, health industry has got several dimensions in terms of one dimension is in terms of old age, taking care of them. And I think most of you may know the European and American type of a demography. If you look at it, it is actually inverted pyramid. There are a large number of elderly people, including in Japan and in Russia. Actually, there is a significant amount of elderly people. And Japan, it is of the order of something like 25%, if I remember, 20%, if I remember correctly. And it is expected to move to 50% in another, 20, 30 years. Large number of people who are above 60. And now they are redefining in terms of above 70 and other thing, because people are continuing to work even up to 80 nowadays. It's not something which stops at 60 or something. But what is happening is the elderly people care is becoming much, much more complicated. And most of the European countries, it is all cared only in the care homes, in terms of whatever you call it, old age homes or special care homes and other things. And there is a huge opportunity for India, according to me. We can create a national level caring centers. And we can even have all these people, many of these people in Europe and other, they are not highly, everybody is not a millionaire. There are a large number of people, technicians, these teachers, then various type of fitter, plumber, carpenter, and various type of whose the income is not adequate in order to meet their old age expenses. But in Indian context, it would be possible for them to be treated, and it's more in terms of caring, and it can be not just looking after their popping up tablets or anything, but what one can call a wholesome type of a thing in terms of various other associated things like your yoga, meditation, and it can be linked to some of the centers of pilgrimage nearer to their stay, and a doctor and various other paraphernalia can be associated with that. I have been telling large number of youngsters to acquire this 2-star, 3-star type of hotels, because they are not going to be anyhow crowded, and convert them into wellness centers and use the idea of wellness center. And what about, we have huge amount of human resources, trained people. And another thing is going to take place in the I am talking in the next 5 years or 8 years or something. But many of the changes are suddenly it will come. You will not even realize. Other thing is electric vehicles are coming all over the world. From Norwegian countries, it is as high as 60%. In China, it is 40%. Already UK has practically told that 2030 onwards, we will allow only the non-gasoline based vehicles. Singapore is also. So that is the future, in which case there is going to be a huge amount of issue in terms of petroleum producing countries. They are all single product countries. Kindly note, like a single product company, which comes into grief if that product is in severe problem. Same way, for instance, if I can tell you, last 4 quarters, China every quarter is consuming or importing less and less of the fuel from these countries. So these output of these countries will have a significant amount of impact, which automatically will create impact on the domestic position of these countries. And I visualize a huge amount of influx of people from these countries who are employed there, working there, to come back to India. So good number of them are healthcare and associated industries. All over the world, if you go, as somebody was jokingly telling, one of our leaders was to go to London to get treated. He told, you are going to have only Narsamma there, our own Keralite girls only. It doesn't matter whether you are here or there. And similarly in doctor profession also, we are going to get. So we have domestic human resources. I think we have to augment them, as well as the one which are inbound from these places, which will provide a huge opportunity for us to conduct this wellness. And it is, I'm not telling it is exclusively for Europeans and Americans or anything. It can even for domestic wellness, because in India also, the role of joint family is declining, and increasingly elderly people are have to take care of themselves only. And if only adequate amount of facilities are available, they will shift there. That is what is the future trend. It's not that every parent is taken care by their children and other thing. So this is one area. The second area will be for in the wellness is again in terms of prevention. This I think is very, very important. Unfortunately, I think not so far attention has been given to prevention. There is huge amount of attention is given to the cure. As I jokingly say, whenever I visit a 5-star hospital, I always find a preventive area or preventive thing. That's a small room in some corner or something. That's all. Otherwise, it is mainly emergency and all your payment and other thing, all the facilities and other thing. So, but I think the preventive industry will have a very good amount of what one can call demand as well as importance. Preventive in the sense what steps to take care. It's not that only at 60 you are going to get a heart problem or anything. It could be much, much earlier. And what are the various other type of. So the linking up of the preventive industry with say health insurance industry, as well as with other type of what one can call financing and fund providers, because whether one likes it or not, unfortunately, healthcare has become reasonably expensive. It's not very easy nowadays, and one has to meet, because it has become more technology oriented. It is increasingly becoming, and I remember visiting on the beginning of the century itself, one of my good friends in Harvard is a doctor. Actually, is a MD and very. In his room, I looked. It was more like a what one can call a computerized photographic type of room. The room was full of all these gadgets. And today in India also we find many of the small clinics and other thing have more of these type of technology-driven situation, wherein that mean investment has to be reasonably significant for that. But more important is that should be capable of encouraging people to think in terms of preventive. I think preventive medicine should be one of the important medicine in the sense of how do you have a aggregate thinking in terms of how do you live, what type of food you are consuming, what type of exercises you are doing, what type of that whole thing has to increase in terms of importance. So wellness industry and another fascinating thing is the role of this technology I was telling in terms of this learning through this internet. It is going to play a much larger role in the scheme of things in education. It's not required you should have some 100 acres of land and in order to have a medical college, or in order to have a what you make loosely call engineering college or anything. It's not required actually, because traditionally, unfortunately, at least in India, the real estate barons became the education barons. And sometimes they gave themselves doctorate and other thing, honorary doctorate and other thing in their own institution. Very interesting. But that is will come to an end. If you have a very good server, if you have a good network, and if you have some 3-4 rooms and a good, what one can call associated people who can run the show, you can have a college today. You can hire people from all over the world, not necessarily from India. Actually, one of the IIT professors was telling me about how a person from MIT is conducting a course. I told that will be the future actually. So it is not required because from Auckland, Alabama, you have a huge number of people of Indian origin who are in various positions of teaching in medical as well as in other fields. So if you can, get them, so the fixed tenure thing will go away. And what about hospitals, sir? There can be common facilities. It's not required that every college should have one hospital attached to that. You can have a common pool, a huge hospital, which is accessed by many of these colleges. So the common hospital can be one of the service providers actually, and the timings can be allocated another thing. It's not a very complex thing or anything. So as more and more technology is getting involved in this field, and so the complications are going to be much more. But at the same time, it's going to reduce the nature of the healthcare industry itself. Much of the teaching can be undertaken through the net-based learning actually. It's not required for you to. And also, some of you may be knowing already, for instance, we are doing a lot of this medical encryption in India for people in Europe and in US. A lot of their, what one can call the reports are sent here, and then it is deciphered, and then it is written back, and then it is sent back another thing. So the whole thing is could be what one can call what is called a linked world. It's not going to be very. So as we have more of technology interface, we have to look at it, and hopefully it should reduce the cost. That is the most important thing. And why preventive one is stressing is whether one likes it or not, the pharma companies have a phenomenal amount of hold on the current way in which things are functioning. It's nothing, it's not a top secret I am letting out or anything. Pharma companies dictate terms on what should be done, what should not be done. And they are huge funders for major political parties all over the world. It's very, very difficult to rein in them, as much as in social media, for instance. We have Google, we have Twitter, and very difficult to rein in them. Same thing about the pharma. But the role of the grip of the pharma industry on this entire, what one can call the line of activities of the healthcare industry should have to be brought lower. Very, very important. Otherwise, what will happen increasingly, the healthcare industry is not caring for the health. It is more caring for the credit cards and wealth only. And people will sooner or later, over a period of time, lose faith in this. And many of them will have their own, what one can call, self-medication, or what is known as WhatsApp medication. You read somebody suggesting something in WhatsApp, and then you. So it is extremely important. I will put it under quote. Credibility of the healthcare industry is maintained. For instance, this pandemic, whether one likes it or not, has created such a chaos. From World Health Organization experts to experts in US and experts in India, every alternate day, different type of messages are sent. I'm not talking about layman, sending messages in WhatsApp, and I'm talking about credible people giving different type of interpretation and different. Obviously, I don't expect 100% commonality in terms of situation like this. But increasingly it is felt that are you serving the interest of the patients, or are you serving the interest of the public, or are you serving somebody else's interest? This issue has become a very, very important thing. So the grip of the pharma has to be reduced, and everybody knows they make huge margins, and they have huge amount of influence, they have huge amount of what one can call control over the entire doctor system all over the world, not only in India, another thing. And the prescription, what is given, another thing, everything is regulated by them. But that will change. I'm very confident that will change. And even consultations can be across in terms of this, what you may loosely call this net. It's not required that, for specific purposes, one might be asked to go there. Otherwise, it is not required for you to visit your doc on a continuous basis. Net-based consultation, and it can bring down the price of consultation, hopefully. And already distribution mechanism is also changing. Large number of retail in India are going to become unemployed. That's not just in pharma, but in other fields also, because of the arrival of your Amazon and various other. We estimate something like 4.5 crore people will be thrown out. Just like electric vehicle I was mentioning is going to make something like 3.5 crore people unemployed, and all the petrol pump people and all those, because the mechanical car used to have something like 8,500 or 9,000 moving parts. Electrical car hardly has got some 70, 80 moving parts. There is no need for so many tinkering shops all over the country. Same way, the retail is undergoing a massive amount of change, and one of the side impact of that will be the this traditional what one can call the stores which are selling the thing. The wholesale margin, retail margin structure will also change. Currently, wholesale margin can be as high as 20-25% retail margin, and then the MRP, and then the whole thing is being turned upside down. Many of them are telling you send us the prescription, we will give you 20% discount, 25%. All that thing will sooner or later catch up. So there is a huge opportunity available in the healthcare industry to provide what I would rather call appropriate type of solutions to different segments of the population. And we have the capability, definitely, and we also have enough amount of human resources to manage these things. It's not that we don't have enough resources or anything. We have enormous amount of resources, and I am confident that quite a number of entrepreneurs will re-look at this industry and the way in which we are functioning, and whether we can be part of the global solution provider, and whether we can operate through technology, net-based solutions and other things. I'm very confident about it. And advantage of technology is it will reduce the areas of mismanagement and corruption and so many other type of things. A simple example you may recall, if you have been traveling in Indian train before 91, 92, you have to meet that TT who is in the platform, and the man with the black coat, he will give you the permission or whatever you call it. He is the Nandikeshwar, or is the Gaurapalaga type to make you enter into the train. And now you see, after the software introduction and upgradation to REC and all these things, and I'm told in those days the cabinet minister at center used to ring up the zonal managers to tell who should be put as TT in which station. And so post technology arrival, huge amount of changes come about in terms of customer travel. I'm visualizing similar type of a change in the healthcare industry. One is sum it up, basic thing will be wellness will be one of the items to tick box. If you have 4 boxes to tick on top, what do you want? Return on investment, then wellness, that will also be ticked. Something like 4-5 years before, it might not have been ticked at all. So that is one thing which will be flourishing. And associated with that is food industry, as everybody says or everybody knows, because I think at least in our Indian system, food and wellness has always been integrated, because it's always told that you are, what you eat. That's something which is very, very important. And so that is the thing. And the third is, of course, the old age people's taking care and other thing. Fourth is technology providing solutions in terms of minimizing the cost and other thing. Fifth is, of course, one area we didn't focus so much is child care and child welfare and other thing. And that also, and entire scenario is going to be drastically different than what it is today, believe me. And when change comes, it's going to come as a huge amount of what one can call tsunami. You cannot even expect, because we all think that change is not going to be very. 1980, I came to Bangalore. I booked a landline telephone. Somebody advised me, go and book it better. 1980. I went to the local thing in Bangalore, Jayanagar Exchange, and then booked one landline telephone. 92, I was allotted one telephone. I got a letter. I kept quiet after booking it. The clerk told me, keep this receipt very carefully. I put it into my bank locker. That was the only thing inside my bank locker. Anyhow, 92, I was allotted one, and there was a huge crowd outside my house congratulating me and other thing, as if I won a Nobel Prize. Anyhow, 12 years it took to get a landline on a normal course. Without I didn't go to any minister, MLA, or this and that, or nothing. I just waited. What I want to say is, today you see, within a matter of 15 days or 20 days, you can get one phone, mobile phone, and huge number of people. Everybody is having it. Carpenter, fitter, plumber, all people are having it. And that has also changed the way in which people's lives are organized. So the change can be very fast, very speedy, and we should be very much prepared for it. That's what I would like to mention. As all the many other things, one of the impact of the Chinese virus is going to be the way the healthcare industry is going to function, and the way in which people are going to benefit out of the new normal of the healthcare and wellness industry. So thank you very much for patiently hearing to my lecture on a Saturday evening, and I would leave the floor to Meghalai.
Yes, yes, Professor. Thank you so much. Participants, if you have any questions, probably you can ask them. We have a question from JS. JS, do you want to ask the question yourself? I can unmute you. You can turn on your video also. JS is an author himself, and he has written some wonderful books.
Yeah.
From the public sector, a great professional. JS, go on with your question.
Thank you, Meghalai, madam. Thank you, Professor. Good evening. Very nice, revealing talk, which is close to my heart. Because transition has been a big challenge. I'm an L&D professional, essentially trying to prepare people for shocks, especially the EV and all, which you have been saying. My question is, actually COVID has made us cavemen. We have gone back 1 lakh years. Instead of cave, we are sitting in decorated flats connected by the broadband with all conditions, and somebody comes and delivers food and everything to us. Now, my question is, like those days we used to live on the riverfront. The humanity used to move towards water because that was the most important thing for survival. Now, will we now go back to a migration, a reverse migration, like metro migration has been a phenomenon in the past 200 years, when the manufacturing became the dominant thing, the tool making or the product making? Will we now go in the reverse direction, or will we, because of the pollution and other things, all the movement restrictions, will we again become a smaller communities? That's my question. Will you be able to?
No, we may not become a smaller community, but there is a, for instance, there is a strong, reaction all over the world against what is quote unquote globalization. Because it was felt that, one suit or one shirt or it fits all. And that is being questioned. The Britons, going out of the EU. Basically, people feel that for local situation, we should have local solutions. It's not required for you to, give it from Belgium or from any other place. So we may not necessarily move into smaller, but basically we may have a lesser amount of what I would say, what we understand as globalization. We would like to have our, local type of situation, local solutions and other thing. That would take place. And this urbanization and other thing is, being talked about. It's going on for quite some time, but actually it is spread over nowadays. If you see, even in Europe or even in India, it's not that the cities are not growing anymore. Actually, if you see the number, the net migration is outside the cities, actually, census wise. And adjacent to cities, small cities are coming up. Small areas are coming up, and so that would continue. I'm very confident about it, and because cities themselves cannot accommodate many of the things, and then we all know that it is broken, in many places in terms of infrastructure and other facilities and other things. So we may not go back, but we might have a huge number of what you may call second cities or third cities, which are relatively better organized and better manned, and that's what I would say.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions, anybody else? You can put it in the chat box, or probably you can lift your hand so that I can unmute you. Okay. Calling Jay Srinivasan, founder of RedMed. Jay, are you there? Can you turn on your video so that we can add you? And Sandhya Rao also. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jay, welcome.
No,
we have the founder and co-founder of RedMed, and since
he has to unmute himself, I think.
Yeah, Jay, please unmute. Yeah, can you unmute now? Yes.
Okay. Professor Vaidyanathan, it's a pleasure to see you here today. Fascinating talk, very good insights. You may be aware that our own venture, RedMed Health Systems, that Sandhya and I founded, is in this very space that you described. And that actually brings certain questions to mind that I would like to ask you. Owing to the fact that the pandemic has accelerated many things for all industries. And my specific question to you is in the context of healthcare. So many years ago, when we were still developing our products, Sandhya and I used to go out and meet doctors at clinics and so on, and also end customers of healthcare. And one of the things we observed frequently, in fact, all the time, I'm talking 4, 5, 6 years ago, was a certain amusement when we articulated this vision of remote healthcare, where doctors could be, consulted remotely, pharmacies could deliver the medicines remotely, and so on and so forth, which has increasingly become very, very common today. But we were essentially laughed out of the room in most instances. Such a possibility was not being envisioned by the major players in healthcare, the doctors themselves. And one of the reasons, in my opinion, and I would like your insight on this, is healthcare is a little different from most other industries in the sense that it has a lot of inbuilt friction. Certain things are just not possible, or at least it takes a long time for it to crack open. So I'll give you 2 examples. And to illustrate that, and perhaps have your opinion on this. The first is, not many people know that Milton Friedman's PhD thesis was actually not allowed to be published for many years. And his PhD thesis was actually in this area of professional service incomes, especially doctors. The PHRMA and the American Medical Association had a big play in not allowing it to be published. So that's number one. The second thing is, there is a company right here in Bangalore, which for many years has been undertaking remote work in terms of radiological interpretation, radiological solutions. It's based in Whitefield, to basically doctors in the US. And it took a lot of time for them to come up to speed. The fact of the matter is, most countries have very strict laws in terms of being able to allow experts from outside the borders to give opinions, even though this could lower the cost of healthcare in their own countries significantly. Now, when you come down to domestic economies like within India, some sort of logic of the same kind plays itself out, where you have friction of all kinds, which do not easily allow for lower cost technology-based services in an easy way. I would like your comment on that, please.
See, one is, all these type of barriers, what I would rather call, they will all by itself break down. See, we had 23 stock exchanges. Everybody was telling, no, we have to protect our turf and nobody will be allowed. And, I recall that, then your National Stock Exchange came, which is interlinked, and all the 23 disappeared actually. So these are, this type of artificial barriers. And second is healthcare is something where, you have to have a human touch and all crap actually. I have been, observing, no doctor has ever touched me in the last, I can share it with you. I am a triple bypass surgery patient. I have had angiogram also. And, some eminent doctors of Bangalore have dealt with, nobody has touched me. Nobody has, after that also. It's a question of just, talking to them and then go and get the reports. I am always worried whether my report is the one which they are, because there are so many confused people there standing, and these helpers are all running around, and maybe somebody else's report it takes. And anyhow, point is, it is not what it used to be. For instance, we had a simple system for the last so many years, I don't know, called family doctor. He knows, your father, your entire, what you may loosely call Mahabharata, actually. And he can, sometime he can just, tell, go and have curd rice and sleep, that type of a thing. But that's not there. That all that is now inside the system, computer. All your family doctor is in the system, and they have to access it, and then they find, oh, this is this. And so technology is significantly altering the way in which, according to me, these artificial barriers within the country or between countries, it cannot last actually more than maybe a couple of years or something. These frictions cannot, because if somebody in New York, he finds it very, very easy, good and capable people in India can be the people who can, facilitate his conducting of his thing. It would not, what one can call, it cannot be stopped, I'm telling you. Technology is going to create havoc in this industry. And some are already knowing about it. I'm confident about it. Some are moving forward. And the level of investment is also increasing, actually, for a ordinary thing, And those, unless those equipments and those systems are, coming down, which will come down. I'm very confident about it. It's not something which we started a mobile phone with 90,000 or something. Now today, 8,000, 10,000 also. So like that, it will come down. So whatever government tries to, or other type of barriers you create, that may not last. Sometimes it can go underground. Let me be very frank. It may be to break the barrier. You just, if two individual through Zoom exchange the records and other things. How do you prevent it? You have to have a huge surveillance mechanism. It's not going to be very easy actually. And when expertise is available in one location or something, it will always be, tapped, or it will always be taken. It's not something which is so that part of it, I'm very confident. This artificial barriers you create is not going to be helpful at all.
So
it will,
I want.
for the time being, it might be beneficial that that you cannot do this. Like for instance, now there is a local electricity you can produce. Many of the apartment buildings have started in Chennai, Bangalore, Bombay, and every place. Some of them want to sell it to the electric producer actually. And again, artificially, they are trying to say that no, you cannot. You can use it only for common location and other things. All that will go away. It's a, there is a, what you call what you may loosely call, there is a entrenched, vested interest, which wants to protect its turf, not by logic, but by, I am the sort of a ruler, I am the regulator and that type, and that cannot function for long. It will.
So, Professor, when you say it will all go away, I'd like to refer to 3 specific things. In India, if you see the behavior of a lot of players, it is driven by perverse incentives. And the perverse incentives allows them to make a lot more incomes than would a technology-driven solution, which actually lowers the price. Yeah. So that is number 1, incentives. The second thing is when we look at the friction that is possible, there is the question of liability. So there is legal liability that comes into play. Yeah. And finally, the third one is, of course, in the government's hands, legislation. So when you look at these 3 items, which have to influence future growth, what do you see there?
The perverse, benefits will be there for some time only. After that, it cannot be sustained for a very long period of time, because there will be a lot of resistance from other type of participants. You cannot just like that have the. I told you the example of that, TT, who used to have the benefit, and it cannot, it cannot be sustained by. You see, technology is like a tsunami. The way it is, coming and moving, another thing. You can do hundreds of things, try to stop it. It's not possible. Like that canoe, the king, you told the waves you. It's not something very easy to stop it. That's one. The second is, in terms of the court, that I agree. That's a very, very important thing. And I personally feel technology is going to change the way in which our judicial system also is functioning. It's going to be massive changes will come about, if not today, within a, and they will, and there is no other alternative other than making all this into software and hardware driven. Everywhere in the world it is. It will make a large number of people redundant actually in the court system and other. Again, the speed at which it comes is a function of how much enthusiastic these people will be. Your Arshad Mehta scandal took place because RBI was not computerized adequately. Nobody knew who is buying, who is selling, and he was making a what one can call a arbitrage out of it or benefit out of it. So that is judicial. 100% I am with you. Requires a thorough type of a, and and many of these complex cases they may not even know. They require, if you ask me honestly, specialists in judiciary to investigate, and that is a second type of a thing. Third is of course this what you were telling in terms of government. See, the government, unfortunately in India they can legislate, but their ability to implement it is very, very poor. This is what we have. Good legislation. There is absolutely no problem about it. We have Shops and Establishment Act. We have this Food and Adulteration Act. How Food and Adulteration Act is implemented? That fellow comes to every small hotel and in an envelope some 1,000 rupees put and given to you. That's all. That is our food and adultery. And whenever he is angry or whenever he is not in a mood, he suddenly goes and says, Spencer Manor is, putting all its garbage in a bin, and then, it comes in newspapers and other things. That's all. So we have good legislation on that. There is no doubt, but the mechanics of, getting it implemented is very, very critical. I'm very confident this high cost thing will go. It's going to be moderately costly only, and then otherwise it cannot percolate among a large segment of the population. You will only be serving a very small group, elite group. That's no use actually. You have to, that alone can bring down your unit cost in terms of investment in technology. Unless you broad base it, then it's not going to facilitate. I'm very confident it will take place. May not be in a couple of months, but at least in a couple of years. A larger good will always be somebody or other will enter and finish these fellows off. That's all. Some new guys will, enter and finish these guys off. That's all. It has happened in many other industries also.
Mhm.
If you are not wanting to change, somebody will come in and like an elephant in the, what you call a ceramic thing. It will, and all these people will, make a huge noise. Oh, we have gone, and that's all right. Look back, I'm telling you, sir, in 1960s, if you see the list of top 100 industry list, today you take the list.
Now, mostly none of them are there.
95 of them are not there.
Yes.
Where are your Tapars, Bangurs, and so many of them, all dinosaurs? They didn't want to change, and so many new fellows have come in. And today we are reading further new fellows. Nobody knows their name even. They are all a lot of youngsters and other thing, enthusiasm and other thing. Something, different fields they are offering you, different type of services. It will, one thing is our government is very disorganized. Our society is organized. You should remember that. Our society is much better organized. I'm serious about it. See the COVID time, the migrant labor, they all stood in queue and got into buses. No buses were burnt. People are not realizing it. People came from Bihar, UP and other things. They were all standing in queue. They got into the buses, went home. Our society is highly organized. Government is very disorganized. In Europe, it's the reverse. Government is very organized. Society is very disorganized. See the way daily, thousands of them are coming on the road and telling we won't wear mask and madness actually.
Very interesting observation.
Don't follow any rule. We won't go for this lockdown. Whatever said and done, with all the limitation, our people have been much more understanding. I would say, so much illiteracy and so much poverty, but still, things will change. I'm very confident.
Thank you, Professor.
I may not be around.
I noticed there are other people.
Many of us may not be around
questions.
to see. I may not be around to see the change, but it will change. I'm very confident about it.
There's one question, Professor, from JS again. As a learning and development professional, I am interested to know the future of teachers and trainers. Now that knowledge is accessible, democratized, like newspaper, will the teacher die or will he turn into a coach or counselor?
He will be more of a counselor. The teacher will never die. I can assure you on that. There is always an intermediary who will be required to, explain. It's like, the difference between the bishop and the priest in a, church type of situation, and the Pandit in Hindu type of situation. He's an intermediary between you and the God. That's all. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't tell you to, you go to a Hindu temple, no priest will tell you do's and don'ts and nothing like that. For that, you have to go to different type of people. So that there will always be a intermediary who will be available, and only the difference will be he may not be attached to a particular institution. This is very important. He may not be ex-university or like, today I find some of the doctors are not attached to any hospitals at all. They move around. like this Uttava Murti, I call them actually, in that, the gods one is taken around the temple.
Yeah.
There is something called Mulavar who sits inside. He never moves around. And that Mulavar type of doctors are very far and few between these days. They go, sir, 8 to 9:30, I am in this hospital, 9:30 to 11 to 12 and 3 to 4. I'm sure you are, you know about it, right? Many of these.
Yes.
And particularly the special type of people like anesthesiologists or your, dentist or your eye surgeons and I'm sure they have the system of some cubicle is there for them. They come and sit there and there is some sharing of the income between him and the owner. So attached to a particular institution might become less and less. You will not be able to say he is employed with, no. He may not be actually. He will be like that. The teacher also will, he will go to any class, 3 to 4:30, RedMed calls me, okay, I will go and talk there. And 6:30 to 8, some other place. So that will be so it will be, it will be sort of a situation because of the technology. And today he is physically moving around from, one hospital to another, and with all the traffic and the other thing, I am really, sometimes I sympathize with them actually. The way they drive, they have to reach the place. And that will also go if we can sit and, use the, what you call web in an appropriate fashion. And then you can look at your thing. And only special cases you may want to physically have your presence. Otherwise, even today he is going to read your report. You can read your report on the web itself. There is no need to you there, and he can give your prescription. You don't have to even give it to you. You can send it to the company or rather whoever is distributing. They can send it to home actually. So this whole thing will change, sir. Teacher, of course, the role of teacher will always be there, 100%, because somebody has to interpret some of the things and also as a guide and more as a emotional support. So many type of things are there.
That's reassuring for the teacher community.
More like
That's very reassuring, Professor, for the teacher community.
I have also.
We do not.
I come from them, so
yes, me too.
So you may be a counselor also. Definitely.
Maybe a counselor. Right? Maybe the name will change.
That's all.
What we call them. That's all.
His role will be there.
Yeah.
His role will always be there. It's like mother, you may call it any now, somebody else also. Finally, the role of the mother has to be played by the person. When the child is, say, between 0 to 4 years or 0 to 3 years. Right?
Yeah.
Same thing.
So, I think there are no more questions. So, I call Sandhya Rao, co-founder of RedMed, to give the closing comments. Sandhya, over to you.
Thanks, Meghalay. So many from my family and friend circle are big fans of Professor for his views because they are different. And not just that, it's sense of humor, the manner in which you bring the point, put the point across. We heard him from his 1/3 comment to the Utsavamurti to the Jargandi, all very interesting. The comments also were so varied, and the analogies from the food industry to the education industry and bringing it to the healthcare industry. Healthcare, as we now know it, is sick care essentially, because we refer to hospitals as healthcare. But yes, rightly, like you rightly said, preventive care is the key wellness in the future, in the current and the future scenario. And it is heartening to know that, because we in RedMed are in that same space. And our attempt is to create a society which is in the wellness space, extending care by design. You also touched upon child care and elder care, again, two very important areas. Interestingly, again, our last webinar was on elder care, of how complex the problem is and what are the various solutions, and the various stakeholders who are a part of elder care or should be a part of elder care. So for such a person who's so with such a pedigree, knowledgeable, Professor Vaidyanathan was so responsive. The minute I reached out to him, he responded within a few minutes, and I got his email ID from Google Guru. Google Guru and WhatsApp universities are our
Yeah,
go-to these days, as you said. And he was immediately accepting of our invitation. And I thank you so much, Professor, for being here today. And your talk, as always, has been very inspiring, very varied. Thank you once again from RedMed, LBN, and All Ladies League.
I would
also,
like to add one more thing because of this
No.
discussion. We normally say a society where lawyers and chartered accountants flourish, that society is in decay. It's it's not a obviously because both of them flourish due to conflicts, and so we should create a system where a society where doctors flourish is also in a society where doctors actually should play lesser role in terms of curative, and I think a more important role they should play in terms of preventive.
Preventive.
This is what is my suggestion or my dream or whatever you can call it. Okay. Thank you.
Our dream too.
Thank you,
And
Professor.
I'd like to thank LBN Tech, our
Yeah.
tech partner, Meghalay, for always being a host and doing such a great job of being a host and supporting the whole initiative of Healthcare Insights. All Ladies League for giving us the opportunity too. And all the audience here today for being here with us on a Saturday afternoon on this pleasant day in Bangalore. That is to make the Chennai folks jealous.
Always we are jealous of your weather.
It is a beautiful day, and thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you
Professor.
all.
Thank
We
you,
will-
participants. Thank you,
all.
participants.
Namaskar.
Yes.
Professor, we will reach out to you separately.
Sure.
Pick your
Thank you
brains
all,
on so many
and
things.
namaskar for all of you.
Namaskaram.
See you all last Saturday of August for another edition of Healthcare Insights. Thank you for joining all of you. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thanks a lot.